we're actually seeing a transition. I would say 10, 12 years ago, you were exactly right. In multiple industries, from government to corporate America, you played by the rules. You did what the board told you to do. You did what the donors or the investors told you to do, and you just did it, right? But with the advent of companies like Facebook, with Twitter, with PayPal, a new generation of business leaders came in that were absolutely countercultural, right? Elon Musk, one of the richest, most famous guys in the world, on the autistic spectrum, nobody likes him. Even the people who love his products don't really like the man. And yet somehow he is able to become a personality force of nature. Zuckerberg was the same way for a long time. You've got the same thing with Donald Trump, right? In politics. Here are people who 10 to 12 years ago, we would have never accepted them as a leader of industry. Mm-hmm. And now we've adapted as a society. We've kind of demonstrated our appetite for a change, for disruption of the status quo. And I think that especially even now as we sit here, the Democratic National Convention is happening in Chicago, and in the field of politics, you can literally see this playing out. You can see one side saying we want to disrupt the status quo, and one side saying we represent the status quo, stay true to the status quo, double down on the status quo. And it's happening at the political level. It's happening in corporate America with different CEOs. But as you and I know very well, government always moves slower than speed of business.
Yeah.
So one day, I'm hoping we will see a day where colonels and generals are specifically chosen because they disrupted what we did in the past and found a better way to create a process. But it's going to take a whole new generation of military officers.
Well, yeah, that, and I think it's going to take an administration that values and rewards that too, because I do think that there's probably some guys that fall into that category that, if somebody, or if there were enough administrations in a row in charge that fired shitbags and hired and rewarded the true patriots, I think you could change it relatively quick, but I think that's the only way to do it. Back to the corporate thing, it sounds like from what you're saying that you see it as kind of an old guard and a new guard, like there's two very different types of industry.
Right, and I would say that for a few reasons, right? So I'm very blessed now that a big chunk of the revenue that's generated by my company comes from industry leaders, high net worth, ultra high net worth, investors, strategic advisors, CEOs. And I'll just tell you one real quick example. I have a client in LA who works in the cannabis industry, and he's a leader in the cannabis industry, specifically in his sub niche, right? And this was a guy who got to where he got because he positioned himself before cannabis was ever legal in the United States. Prior to that, he was just a fucking entrepreneur trying to scrape by to make it work with a product that he believed in, right? And that's all he was doing. But, rebellious, countercultural, everybody thought cannabis would never be legalized. And of course it's not going to be legalized. And if you're helping backyard growers, you're a bad person, right? You're breaking policy. And that was the world he was born of as an entrepreneur. And then he participated in trying to lobby to get it legalized in the United States. He was super smart on all the regulations, which states were going to say yes first. Now he sits in a spectacular apartment in a spectacular part of the city, in a penthouse, in a place that most of us can only dream about living, because he bucked all of the cultural norms. And he said, fuck it, this is what I'm good at. This is where I think we're going. This is my vision. I'm either right or wrong, but I'm all in.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more people like that in industry. I was sitting with a client in New York just a few days ago who's the same way, an architect who's bucking the system and winning most of the time, but bureaucracy and policy works against him. So he's one of those 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because he's constantly fighting an entrenched, marketplace that's still supported by old guard.
Yeah.